Okay, she's a successful professor, a familiar face from reality TV, someone whose life is very much out there in public. We're talking about Wendy Osefo. And today, she finds herself at the center of a really complex legal situation. It puts her reputation, maybe even her freedom, on the line. This deep dive is all about the sources detailing these accusations against her and her husband. It involves an alleged, well, a massive insurance fraud scheme. This isn't just celebrity gossip. We're focusing on the specific evidence laid out, security logs, financial records, internal emails, things that suggest a very different story than what was initially reported.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, to look past the reality TV angle for a moment and focus on the mechanics here, the mechanics of the alleged crime itself.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is seeing how standard investigation techniques, when applied to someone whose life is so documented, can, well, uncover these deep inconsistencies.
Yeah.
We're essentially analyzing a pretty complex paper trail that shifts the whole narrative, from just a disputed insurance claim to an alleged criminal conspiracy.
Right. So the basic outline is pretty stark.
Hmm.
They claim their home was burglarized, reported losses in the hundreds of thousands,
Hmm.
but then an investigation kicks off and reportedly finds red flags almost right away. Okay, let's get into it. So story starts back in April 2024. A couple is away traveling abroad, and that's when they claimed their home was broken into. When they got back, they filed a report detailing, a pretty devastating loss of property. And we need to talk about the scale of that claim. It wasn't just a few things missing. The report listed dozens of really high-end items. We're talking designer handbags, expensive jewelry, luxury collectibles, that kind of thing. The total value reported, well into the six figures, apparently reaching the high hundreds of thousands.
And this is where context is key for you, the listener. When an insurance claim hits that kind of level in this case, reportedly over $400,000, it just fundamentally changes things. It's not just your local adjuster anymore. It brings in specialized fraud teams, forensic accountants, sometimes even law enforcement gets involved directly because, look, that amount suggests potential felony financial crime. So that intense level of scrutiny, that's exactly what led to the conflicting evidence surfacing.
Okay, that makes total sense. High value equals high scrutiny. So after the claim was filed, what was the very first piece of hard evidence police found that made them think, hang on, this might not be a typical burglary?
Well, that takes us right to the physical evidence. Or, maybe more accurately, the lack of physical evidence. Investigators immediately went for the digital footprint of the house itself. Security camera footage, the alarm system logs, motion detector reports, covering the time the theft supposedly happened. And the finding was, well, a huge contradiction right off the bat. The logs showed zero evidence of forced entry. No broken windows, no jimmy doors. And crucially, the alarm system, reportedly silent. Motion detectors inside the house. Nothing recorded during the time frame when all this valuable stuff was supposedly carried out.
Whoa, wait. No forced entry, no alarm, no motion.
According to the sources detailing the investigation, yes, for, hundreds of thousands of dollars in goods to just vanish like that, you'd expect some sign of intrusion. And they say there wasn't one.
Okay, so if the physical evidence wasn't there, where did they look next? Did they start digging into the couple's finances right away?
That's exactly the next step. The investigation widened pretty quickly. They started focusing on financial records, specifically tied to those high-value items listed as stolen. And what they reportedly found were some, let's say, alarming financial inconsistencies. The sources indicate that several items on that stolen list, especially some luxury goods, handbags, had allegedly been returned to stores. For full refunds, mind you.
Returned.
Yeah, returned, before the burglary was even reported to the police. Which, suggests items claimed as stolen might have already been back with the retailer.
Okay, if that's true, how did they even trace that? Is that through bank records or store loyalty cards? Or that sounds like some detailed forensic accounting.
It's often a mix of things, yeah. In these kinds of high-stakes financial probes, investigators can subpoena bank statements, credit card records, and often retail receipts or refund confirmations have unique codes. They can track those. The key thing here is how meticulous the evidence gathering was. It wasn't just, did they own this expensive bag? It was, okay, where was this specific bag right before the alleged theft happened?
Right. Right. And then, of course, there's the public life aspect. This is where being a reality TV star suddenly becomes very relevant to the investigation.
Precisely. For public figures, your social media feed can become Exhibit A without you even realizing it. Investigators reportedly also found contradictory evidence right there on social media. Posts apparently surfaced showing Wendy Osefo wearing a very distinctive ring.
Let me guess, a ring that was on the list.
A piece of jewelry specifically listed in the insurance claim as having been stolen during that April 2024 burglary. Yes.
Wow. That really highlights the tension, doesn't it? Between reality TV demanding constant documentation and, well, trying to keep something potentially criminal under wraps. So these details, the silent alarm system, the refunds happening before the report, the jewelry showing up in photos after it was supposedly stolen, that must have raised huge questions about the whole story right away.
Major questions about the veracity of the initial report.
Okay, so this leads us into what sounds like the core of the alleged fraud. This is where the idea of conspiracy comes in. We have to talk about maybe the most damning piece of alleged evidence mentioned in the sources: internal documents.
Yeah, alleged emails. Communications reportedly uncovered between the couple during the investigation. And the content of these emails, according to reports, is what really shifts this from just a dispute over a claim to alleged premeditation, criminal intent. The reports say these emails included discussions suggesting they needed to, and this is the alleged phrase, pad the claim. They were apparently brainstorming, listing additional high-value items to add to the claim list, items explicitly noted, allegedly, as not having been stolen.
So not just maybe misremembering something, but actively adding things they knew weren't taken?
That's what the sources allege, yes. It wasn't about forgetting an item. It was allegedly about fabricating parts of the list to inflate the total value.
And when they were allegedly trying to pad the claim, did the sources say why? Was it just to get more money overall, or was there something specific like hitting a policy limit or deductible?
That's a great question. The sources suggest it was quite strategic, actually, aimed at specific policy thresholds. See, most high-value homeowner policies have sublimits, like a maximum payout for jewelry, another for art, electronics, etc. By allegedly padding the claim with certain types of high-end items, the goal was likely two things. One, make sure they easily cleared any large deductible they might have, and two, potentially max out those specific sublimits for luxury goods coverage, which of course maximizes the potential total payout from the insurance company.
And we know the final number they submitted on that claim form, it was what, over $400,000?
Significantly exceeded $400,000, according to the reports, yeah.
So you take that paper trail, the digital red flags, like the security logs, the scale of the alleged inflation. It makes sense this moved way beyond the insurance adjuster and landed squarely in the lap of the criminal justice system.
Exactly. Which brings us to the legal fallout. We need to jump forward a bit in time, over a year later, to October 2025. That's when all this investigative work culminated in formal legal action being taken. Both Wendy Osefo and her husband were arrested. They were booked.
And the charges weren't minor, I take it.
No, pretty comprehensive and serious.
Yeah.
Multiple counts alleged. Insurance fraud, making false statements to law enforcement, conspiracy to commit a crime. Specifically, the sources mentioned felony counts tied to submitting false or misleading information as part of that big insurance claim.
Okay. Now, after the arrest and booking, they did post bond, right? They were released.
They were released after posting bond, yes. But the legal action didn't end there. Authorities followed up later with a search warrant.
A search of their home.
Correct. And during that search, authorities reportedly seized physical evidence, at least 15 items according to the sources. Items explicitly identified as being part of that original $400,000 plus insurance claim. Items the couple had insisted were stolen many months earlier.
Finding items they claimed were stolen, that must strengthen the prosecution's case considerably.
Oh, absolutely. Finding the physical property that was allegedly claimed as lost makes it much harder to argue it was simply missing.
And as you'd expect in a case like this involving public figures, they issued a statement, right?
The typical response.
Yeah.
They expressed gratitude for support, stated they were looking forward to their day in court, and asked for privacy while the legal process plays out.
But the bottom line is the trial is now on the court calendar. The legal pressure is definitely on.
And if we zoom out, look at the bigger picture here. This whole situation really sparks an important conversation, doesn't it? About accountability, especially in this age of constant documentation. When you have a high-profile case like this involving a reality TV personality whose brand is built on, visibility and supposed authenticity, what's the real impact of these kinds of criminal allegations on their public image, on their career?
That tension is really something. Their public life, the thing that's meticulously documented for TV cameras and social media, that very documentation seems to have provided the trail of evidence the prosecution is now reportedly using against them.
It's a perfect illustration of this new reality for investigations, isn't it? For public figures today, your Instagram feed, your tweets, they can become the prosecution's unexpected star witness. Every post, every photo, every geotag creates this sort of uneditable timestamp.
Mm,
And it can easily contradict a statement you make later under oath or on an insurance form.
mm.
The whole risk-reward calculation for something like financial fraud, it just changes completely when your life is basically archived online in real time. It's fundamentally different than it was even, say, 20 years ago.
It also really underscores the seriousness of insurance fraud itself. Sometimes people might think, oh, it's a victimless crime against a big company. But the sources here, they seem to suggest a very calculated, maybe even premeditated effort to significantly inflate a claim purely for profit. So the core question for the trial really boils down to this. Was this some kind of sophisticated scheme that just got sloppy and backfired on them? Or will their defense manage to convince a jury that all this counter evidence, the silent alarms, the refunds, the social media pics, those alleged emails, is all just one giant, unfortunate misunderstanding?
That central contradiction is exactly what the defense has to tackle. It's a huge task. How do you explain why the security system apparently recorded nothing during a major theft? Why valuable items were allegedly returned just before being claimed as stolen? And maybe most critically, how do you explain away those alleged internal emails suggesting a need to strategically pad the loss total to hit insurance payout thresholds?
Yeah, it's a compelling pile of evidence outlined in the source material. We've talked about a claim over $400,000. Zero proof of forced entry. Finding refunds made before the claim was filed. And these alleged communications about deliberately inflating the list.
It certainly raises the stakes dramatically. So maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on as you process all this. Given the detailed forensic and digital evidence authorities have reportedly gathered, including alleged written messages, and those social media posts we discussed, should the public, maybe the courts, hold public figures who live such documented lives to an even higher standard of transparency when they make large financial claims like this? Does that constant pervasive documentation change our expectation of accountability when major legal disputes arise? Something to think about.